Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Cormac.
Nice to meet you,
That's
Jasmine.
me. This is Maddie.
Hold this.
How's it going?
Good to see you, Bo. So this is ground zero. This is where the magic happens.
This is honestly like blowing me away. This is so impressive. Guys, this is Jane Rogers, the director and founder of the Salty Label. And we'll be interviewing Jane today as well, but we're also just catching up. Whenever we go to like one of the a brand's HQ, it's funny seeing the products up front when you've just only forever seen them.
The images
on the images,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah. But it's such an amazing layout.
And this is our creative space.
Oh my goodness. It looks great. And when did you get this spot?
We moved it in March.
Wow. And how many of the girls did you have with you?
I've had one working with me for about a year.
Yeah.
Sally had onboarded in December.
Yeah.
And then the other three have come on since then.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. When we met in January, it was like, I remember we were having conversations all around this kind of stuff, and like to see it come to fruition is incredible.
Yeah, it was a big leap to sort of take the space, but it's been like the best decision we've made, so.
Kudos to you. Hey guys, I am sitting here with Jane Rogers, the director and founder of the Salty Label, a fashion label designed for the vacation lover's wardrobe.
This is correct.
Since launching the business in 2015, Jane has amassed over 68,000 followers on Instagram, launched over 11 collections to date, built her team to 4 or 5 members?
5. Yeah.
5 members, and moved into her own warehouse at the start of the 2021 year. Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me.
I would say it's great to be here, but it's great for you to be here.
It's great for me to be here. It's an absolute privilege. Since launching the Salty Label back in 2015, how has life changed for you?
How has life changed? It's sort of been this incredible dichotomy when you run your own business, because on the one hand you've got all of this lifestyle freedom, and it's incredibly fulfilling to bring like all of your creative ideas and passions to life. But then on the flip side, it's very relentless building a business, as I'm sure you can understand.
Yeah.
And although you have all this lifestyle freedom, you spend 98% of your waking moments working on the business as well. So,
Massive.
I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world, and it's afforded me so many opportunities to travel and to see beautiful places of the world for photo shoots.
Yes.
But no, it's been great to be able to bring a creative vision to life and being able to build a team behind me that can bring that vision to life in an even greater capacity than I would have been able to do myself.
Yeah, it's always an interesting thing as well. As like we're sitting here today, like we look around, we look at all this stuff that we've kind of built today. I mean, it definitely didn't start off like this, did it?
It definitely didn't. No.
Yeah. How long was that build up until you really started to see that traction?
So once I started back in 2015, for the first couple of years, I really kept it quite a small operation, and to be honest, it was really just myself blocking my own growth by not bringing on the right people and allowing like different people to shine, because as one individual there's only so much you can do in a day, there's only so much you can achieve.
Yep.
So at the very beginning, the brand sort of started really quite aggressively as a wholesale brand. So I never envisioned the brand to be an online retail brand. I had come from a wholesale background. That was my background before I started the brand.
Okay.
So when I had started this, that was all I knew, is that wholesaling into different boutiques, and that's how you build a brand's value, and then they do the direct to consumer work. So it's kind of been the process along the way of maybe 1 or 2 years in being like, okay, this online thing is taking off, and maybe there's something in that, and that's when I started to divert a little bit and grow it online and take it from there.
I didn't know that. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Because usually a lot of the brand owners that we would start to work with, that'd be e-commerce, that's the first route, that's where we started, and it's where we're aiming for.
Yeah, 100%. Most brands do start online and then they'll be like, oh, I'd love to stock in a few boutiques. Whereas I had, come from a wholesale background, knew how to bring had a lot of contacts in the industry, knew how to bring big stockers on board. So I started with that and then sort of reversed my way back into being like, oh, we should do some really beautiful campaign shoots and we should have our own online store and we should have a shopfront presence, and worked it back that way.
Why wouldn't you have it, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now that's the forefront of our brand, and our wholesale is just like a nice little side that we obviously still keep on board. But I mean, in a great way, the wholesale was a really beautiful way to get into the mass market and get brand awareness early, because we were in so many different locations across the world and across Australia particularly. Yeah. So people were getting really familiar with our brand that way.
Were you wholesaling to like brick and mortar stores, or were you wholesaling to like mainly e-commerce brands as well?
Combination of both.
Yeah.
A lot of brick and mortar stores, but we did have a few big online retailers. I think second year in, we started working with Revolve, which was massive for our brand back then.
Yeah.
And that way our sort of brand online presence and our social media, we grew quite organically because people were seeing us across all these different platforms from all of these stockers who had quite big followings themselves, and they were all, pushing them back to our brand. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful way to start.
That's incredible. Yeah. And obviously, so that was 2015, 2021 now, 5 team members, like it's crazy. When you did start the brand in 2015, how long were you working by yourself before you started hiring your first team member?
I definitely had family on board at the start, and I would have freelancers come on board, but I never committed to like the space and the staff. So it was probably in 2019 is when I started bringing my own staff on board. And still from that perspective, it was very much just having warehouse staff and people to help with like picking and packing and dispatch. And I'd always done all the marketing and the design and pieces like that myself. It's only been in the last about 6 to 8 months that I've brought on a team to help with the marketing side as well and grow it that way. Yeah,
it's such an interesting point you brought up as well, which was around how the business can't, if you don't let it grow past you, like even on my side, like I understand that letting go of those reins, and we literally just talked about this before, but letting go of the reins of all the hats that you typically wear as the CEO. So now that you've started to build out the team to 5, what are some of the departments and some of the roles that you've built out, and what would you say are the most important ones to first start building out?
100%. For me, the biggest one was getting our warehouse managed properly, because dispatch and logistics is such a huge part of the brand, and it really does affect a customer's experience with the brand. So getting that right first was massive, because it allowed me the time to then focus on building the brand in itself rather than working in the business and physically picking and packing orders every day. So that was the first one, 100%. And that was only afforded because it was a time thing, because if I was spending 8 hours wrapping orders a day, there was no time or energy left to design or work on the website or do different creative elements. After that, that's when it was really starting to refine all the bits and pieces of all the other elements of the business, which have all grown at the same time. So it's been a little bit challenging, but as we still have a big wholesale presence, we have a wholesale manager now who looks after all of those clients and really builds rapport and sells our brand that way. And then marketing has been at the same time, has been another one that we've really started to work together with. So we've got an in-house full-time marketing manager, and then obviously we work with you guys externally.
That's an interesting one, because obviously the biggest scare I reckon that even I had, and maybe you've experienced as well, is hiring an individual. Because the way I always looked at it when I was first making my first hire was that, okay, crap, I'm about to take somebody's salary and their career, put it in my hands.
100%.
And I wanted to make sure that I had a steady business to be able to support that individual financially, myself financially, and then the business's profitability, you know what I mean? What was the point, what was that tipping point where you were kind of comfortable to get the second staff member and the third staff member?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it is so scary bringing people on at the start, but yet once you have the people, you then have all this time to grow the business, and they're all of a sudden helping you grow the business. So things naturally run a lot smoother. When you're your own bottleneck, you do sort of have this small money mindset because there's only so much you can achieve in a day. To be fair, it was COVID driven, and it was just a risk. It was literally just jumping in and being like, look, we've been building the brand for 5 years. We've got a little bit of capital behind us to cover these wages. Let's just do it. It's now or never. Like, it might not work out, but it might. And if you do, like, obviously playing it safe, and if you keep doing the same thing over and over and you're not getting the results that you want, you've got to do something different. So it was just 100%. Taking the risk and investing in people, and and I'm 9 times out of 10 it pays off.
100%. I always have a saying, it's take 3 steps back to go 10 steps forward.
100%.
If you don't invest in things, then you can never kind of build that infrastructure internally to go beyond the point that you're at. It's massive. This is a really interesting question just on my part, because I've just had no experience with this, but you have launched over 11 collections with the Salty label. And is it 11 or is it more now? It's
probably a little bit more now. I'd say it's probably actually around the 20 mark.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Scratch it. 20 collections. That's insane.
We've got all the older wholesale collections back from 2015. We don't need to look at any of those collections.
Got you. Okay.
We'll say 11 good collections.
11 good collections.
11 refined collections.
Okay. Beautiful. A couple of laughs in the background there. So we would definitely classify you as a seasoned veteran, right? Launching so many campaigns. What would you say are the key steps that you could probably share to someone in your shoes, or someone who might just be starting out, that you would take to successfully launch a collection or those first collections?
I mean, the biggest holdback and the biggest barrier to any brand is manufacturing. And that's one of the hardest barriers of entry into this business, because it's not something that is readily available. It's not contacts that brands readily share, because it is their intellectual property once they've got it, and they don't want to share those details. So you really do need to put a lot of time and effort into finding the right manufacturer, trying a lot of different people, testing the quality, because there's no point releasing a range and building a brand if you can't support that functionality.
And you did a lot of that at the beginning, did you?
100%, and it took years to refine, because it's a trial and error process.
I bet.
So getting your manufacturing right and getting a team in place that you really trust is paramount.
Step number 1, get the manufacturing.
Get a manufacturing first, because you don't want to have beautiful designs and then no way to produce them, because you won't be able to support your growth that way.
Very true.
And quality as well is a massive one. If you have a beautiful product but it falls apart the moment someone opens it, it's not going to have longevity for your business. Is that it?
Good timing.
Do we cut that and do that again, or we just
that's right.
Okay. Just keep going. Okay.
So step number 1, solidifying that solid manufacturer.
100%. Getting the manufacturing in place. From that, it would be your design.
Right. And you did the designs early on in the beginning stage of the business, and now you've kind of got more people doing them and helping you out, or is it still you?
It's still me. Okay. I have graphic designers that I work with who do our prints, but the rest is still me. I haven't, that will be our next hire. If anyone's watching and is a designer, submit your resume within. So design is paramount, and having a unique point of difference in the market is so important, because it's so saturated. So if you don't have that point of difference, you're not going to stand out from the crowd. So building a quality manufacturing, getting your designs ready, and then imagery. Imagery is huge in this industry. An image can make or break a brand. And there's so many times that we'll have a product, and it's a beautiful product and we think it's going to do so well, but we just don't have, the image just isn't quite there. We'll reshoot it and get that image, and it will just change the game for that style completely. So a lot of people would probably a little bit more hesitant to invest in imagery at the start, or will do sort of more stock studio imagery, but that's not where it's at. That's one of those things that you have to invest money in from the beginning, because when you're up against a lot of players who are putting a lot of money into their campaigns, you really need to be on that same level to compete.
100%. So you're a massive advocate for content, because content is just
100%. As much content as you can get in as many locations and as many varieties you can get, and really putting your money into getting a great photographer, a great videographer, and so you can really build that content, because that's the backbone that everything else is going to build off. 100%. And although you are investing a little bit of money into the start, the sales that you'll see because of having a great image there's no comparison. And then all of those images will obviously translate into digital marketing when what we're doing working together. And that obviously changes the game for you guys as well when you have really great content to work with.
It's like magic for us. Yeah, it just helps our game out so much.
Yeah.
It's a great segue into my next question, because I mean, like, we look at some of the imagery that you've kind of got going on here, especially some of the imagery that you would see on your site, even some of the imagery that you would send over to us to run the ads. Now, out of all the brands that I've had experience working with, the Salty Label content shoots easily hold the most spectacular locations. They're phenomenal. Can you walk me through the process behind organizing these shoots at all these different locations around the world?
I mean, pre-COVID, it was a very different situation, and pre-COVID, it was incredibly driven by places that I particularly wanted to visit as well. We produce holiday wear. That's the market that we work to, and our whole brand is encapsulating that holiday lifestyle.
Vacation.
100%. And brands don't buy into a product, they buy into the lifestyle and the ethos behind a brand. So for us, it's all about sort of creating that magic energy, I suppose, that you feel when you go on vacation, and having that translate. So when a customer does see our campaigns, you know, they are instantly transported to that European summer that they're so desperately wanting to go to, or that island getaway that we 100% need right now. And so it is like our key part of our strategy is to keep all of these really beautiful holiday destinations through our campaigns. Obviously pre-COVID, we could travel to a lot of these places. In a post-COVID or current COVID world is a lot more challenging. So at the moment, we're really getting creative with finding different creative teams across the world who we can trust to shoot on our behalf. And with a lot of micromanagement via Zoom on our end.
In the beginning stages of the Salty, were you yourself going to all of these locations, organising the shoots?
100%.
Okay. And then now it's been a totally different game.
Now it's a game change.
Zoom calls, organising, micromanaging, like you were saying.
100%, and trying to find a photographer, a model, a stylist, a makeup artist, and like locations all in a country that you're not particularly familiar with. It is challenging, but I mean, the content that we're getting back, and sometimes when you let go, you actually get some amazing results as well. So there's a lot more in the pre-planning phases now, trying to find the right team to put together, and then just giving them the trust to produce on our behalf. But it is working out really beautifully right now.
Yeah, it most definitely is. Here's another interesting topic, I think, especially just because you're so experienced and well-versed with running successful e-commerce brands. A lot of interest now is being created around e-com. Like, we know that the barriers to entry to start an e-commerce brand, set up a Shopify account, there's even drop shipping, options out there now. It's not really something that I'm interested in. But what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you might see some of these new e-commerce brands that are being launched in today's world that they're making? What do you think some of the biggest mistakes they're making at the moment?
It's actually funny that you say dropshipping, because that was the first thing that came to my mind, is that there's so many people out there who do just want to have a piece of the pie and see e-commerce as, this great industry to jump on board in. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a product and a unique product and a beautiful product that differentiates from the rest of the group, you're not going to thrive. And if you're, going into e-commerce purely to buy a few pieces of Alibaba and then resell them, it is a low barrier of entry, and if everyone else can do that, everyone else can do that, and you don't have that point of difference. So although it is super easy to start, if you don't have that core foundation of a product or a unique service that you're going to be offering, then I personally wouldn't take the next steps, because I think e-commerce just works as a beautiful addition to already having the passion behind building a brand, rather than just getting someone else's product on and selling it.
Yeah, definitely. How about for particular businesses in the fashion industry. They, like other brands can go the route of fast fashion. You definitely haven't gone that route, but for somebody that's building traction with their fashion store, what would you think some of the mistakes that they could potentially fall into that maybe you did in your early stages that they could avoid?
Yeah, I mean, from a wholesale stockist perspective, it was quite easy to say yes to everybody at the beginning. And I know a lot of brands, especially at the beginning, when you are just starting out and you really want to launch a brand, it's easy to just put your brand in any other online store. But you do have to be quite discerning in the fact that these online stores are a representation of your brand. And if they're a slightly lower price point or a different aesthetic than what you're normally putting yourself into and just saying yes for the exposure, it doesn't always translate as good exposure. So that's one that I've seen a lot of brands do, is they're just like a mismatch of what they're trying to create as their brand as a whole and where they're placing themselves. And then, like I spoke about before, imagery and marketing.
Massive.
Yeah, if you're not investing the time into creating beautiful imagery, you could have the best product in the world, but no one's going to be able to see it and appreciate it.
So true.
Yeah.
Very more. Now, obviously, you're a client of top tier marketing. A lot of the people that watch this content, they are super interested in the ad side of things. How has, especially since we started working together in January, how has the effect of social media advertising played on your business?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal, and the results that we've seen now that we've really committed into Facebook advertising, like the results they speak for themselves, and it's something that you couldn't even envision without taking those first steps. I know myself, it was quite a little bit daunting at the beginning, jumping into Facebook advertising about 18 months ago when we first started playing around with it. Yeah. Because you just you just don't know what you're going to get out, and it is quite an analytical based application to do. And we're amazing at producing the imagery, but put me in a Facebook analytics account and I have no idea what's going on. So yeah, it's been really great, especially working with you guys. You were quite great at keeping it small for us and then slowly building, so we could get comfortable. The results are proving themselves, and it made us comfortable to scale up. But the results that Facebook advertising have given us is beyond what I ever would have imagined. 6-12 months ago, if you had have asked me, I wouldn't have had the same feedback as I do now. So
it's interesting. I'm on the other side of the spectrum where I have brand owners that would come to me. I don't get that first experience of how nervous or daunting that first step might be, especially with working with an agency. A lot of brands do obviously go that route. It's really great for them. What advice would you give to somebody out there that is looking to take that next step and potentially working with an agency? What did you look for?
I definitely looked for someone who still had the right aesthetic eye for what we were working with. I think there's a lot of Facebook advertising agencies out there who very much push the analytical side, but as a creative-based business, you want someone who can understand the sort of intricacies of running a creative-based business and how important the imagery and those sort of assets are as well, not just the data behind it all that it's driven by. Right. So that was something that was massive when I was looking for it as well. So which is why you guys really sort of appealed to us. Maddie, 100%.
Maddie, you've got that creative touch, as we know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was huge. I think it's like me personally, I think it's super important to ensure that if you're an e-commerce owner, when you do want to work with an agency, you understand who you're working with within the agency. Yeah. Because if you don't have the right person or the right fit as your digital strategist, they're not going to get those things like the content or like the graphics. They're going to look at it like analytics. They're going to look at it like, well, how can I get the most conversions? And it might tarnish the brand long term. 100%. And I mean, we sort of think of Maddie particularly and the rest of you guys as an extension of our brand. So we want them to really understand the ethos and really, deep dive into our customer and our best-selling products and our imagery that works, and be that extension and our tone of voice and how our customer thinks and feels and shops. So
that's why it was really important to get someone who understood that creative vision as well.
Love it. That's awesome. Social media as a whole has it's probably one of the biggest marketing tools for anybody in e-commerce. How big of a tool has it played for you just on the organic content side for The Salty?
Oh, social media is everything. For the first, 4 or 5 years, it was 100% of our marketing. We didn't do anything else. Obviously, social media has changed in the way that the content that you produce isn't easily as accessible, which is why it is so important nowadays to have a digital marketing strategy behind it. Because back in the glory days 5 years ago, you could do a beautiful image and throw a post up, and organically everyone would see it and you would grow. It was great, but we don't have that anymore. So now you do need to invest a little bit for people to be able to see what you are putting out there. So you can have a beautiful product and beautiful imagery, but if no one's seeing it, what's the point? So that's where digital marketing comes in.
Massive. Did you ever go the influencer route?
100%, and that is still a big driver for us. It is always a tricky industry to work with, but I mean overall the results are great, and you just have to be quite selective about who you're working with. Exactly.
It's a big one. People think that they can just push it out to somebody that has 1 million followers, but if their branding isn't in line with yours, then it misses the punch.
100%, yeah, and there's definitely a lot of girls who have amazing followings, but they're very swimwear driven. Whereas there's a lot of girls who might have smaller followings, but they're fashion driven. So our consumer is following them, and they're interested in what they're buying. So it's not always a numbers game anymore. You have to think a little bit more broadly about 1 million followers, but only 5% of their audience is buying, or 50,000 followers, but 80% of their audience is very engaged in buying. It's a different playing field. But
you have to be strategic about it.
You do have to be strategic, but it's a great way to get exposure, and also just from a content perspective as well. It's a great way to see how someone else would style an outfit, and someone else on vacation, and how they would wear their pieces.
Even if you don't get the sales straight away from their post, you still have the content that you can put into an ad, and you can launch that, and then that will generate sales.
100%. I think a lot of brands these days are going for a more micro-influencer strategy for that reason, just to get the content. We can do the digital marketing ourselves, but getting that content is priceless. And like I said, it could be that one image that makes or breaks a style. It could be that one influencer who took that one dress photo or that one location, and that was just the perfect combination.
Skyrocketed it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Look, you've achieved so much literally since the day that we met you. It's been so great to see your success so far, and there's obviously so much more to come. What is in store for the rest of the year for The Salty? What do you have
2021. A lot of new ranges, a lot of beautiful locations, that's a given. Probably the most exciting thing that's new for us will be our first children's wear collection.
Wow.
So really hitting that mummy and me dressing, and when you're on vacation, who doesn't want to coordinate their outfit with their little daughter or their son? It will be unisex.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so we're super excited about that.
We can't wait to advertise it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jane, for joining me on the show. That was super, super insightful. Lots of value there.
Welcome. It's wonderful working.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. We will see you in the next interview.